Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another lesson. Today, what we are going to be doing is changing it up a little bit. We've already done an author once before. We did Eric Carle a couple of lessons ago, but we're going to jump back into working with another author slash illustrator, and that is one of my childhood favorites. We are going to be looking at Shel Silverstein today. Now, you may have some of his books at home. Where the Sidewalk Ends, Falling Up, The Giving Tree. He is definitely well known for his collections of poems. These are good examples. I'll go ahead and show you the title up close. The poems and the drawings are all original work by Shel Silverstein, and I find his work to be really, really compelling and unique. His drawings specifically are line drawings that are filled in using different drawing techniques that we're going to learn about today. And like I said, his poetry is very creative. So I kind of want to give you a little bit of a sampling here. You can see through, there's illustrations. Let me get closer. There we go. There's illustrations that go along with them. The illustrations are just very simple. The poetry really works with the illustrations. So I'll go ahead and kind of start off with just a little bit of a sampling. This is one of my favorites. When we were in middle school, we actually had to practice poetry reading it aloud. Just really good for so many reasons. And so one of the ones that I read aloud just as a simple one and kind of a humorous one was called Snowballs. So it's right up here. And it says, I made myself a snowball, as perfect as could be. I thought I'd keep it as a pet and let it sleep with me. I made it some pajamas and a pillow for its head. Then last night it ran away, but first it wet the bed. So humorous, simple, witty, rhyming. And again, one of my favorites, authors, poets that I've had since I was a kid, and I'm sure a lot of other teachers and adults out there agree with me. This is a great one to share with our young ones. So a little bit about Shel Silverstein. Now, Shel Silverstein was born in 1930, and he began drawing at the age of 7. He is known to be a poet. He is known to be a cartoonist. He also is an author. He's also a singer-songwriter, which is something that maybe some people don't know about him. But within his time, he sold over 20 million copies of his books, really widespread over numerous languages. But again, very unique style, very, very interesting work. So we're going to talk about Shel Silverstein. We're going to talk about some drawing techniques. And we're also going to talk about how on April 1st, we are entering into National Poetry Month. So we'll talk about that for a little bit. So what we're going to jump into next is we learned about this author, Shel Silverstein. We also learned that he is a cartoonist and he illustrated all of his own books. So let's take a look at what he did. So I created this piece here as just a nice little example. This example is fairly simple and uses basic shapes. We talked in our previous feeds about how we use basic shapes to build all of our illustrations. So this piece really just comes down to basic shapes, rectangles and triangles, getting creative with the window shapes using semicircles. And what we're going to do is we're going to take those basic shapes, and I mimicked the cover, or I guess the back cover, if you kind of wrap it around, of Where the Sidewalk Ends. So you can kind of see how I mimicked those shapes right here. So once you create the basic shapes, then we're going to start talking about how to add some shading. Now, there are numerous ways to approach it. You can actually use a pencil and do pencil shading. But what I want to show you, and something that Shel Silverstein did a lot of, is pen and ink work. Now with that, pen and ink, you can't necessarily shade the way that you would shade with pencil. So we're going to talk about how we use 4 different drawing techniques that can be used to create similar techniques to show value. Value is how light or dark it is. So you can see we have dark, we have light, and then we have the spaces in between. So taking a look right here, here are 4 techniques we're going to look at. So let me straighten that out. Perfect. So we have hatching. Now hatching is using repeated lines. And the closer you put together the lines, the darker it looks. The further apart they are, the lighter it looks. Then from there, we change it up and we have cross hatching. And cross hatching is drawing a bunch of X's. So you can literally see we're drawing back and forth, a bunch of X's, super, super simple. The closer together we do those lines, the darker it is. The further apart they are, the lighter it is. So I always use X's as the easy way to teach my little ones because that's something that they can recognize. But cross hatching, you really start to work on crossing those lines rather than hatching, which is just lines along the same plane. Jumping down to stippling. Stippling kind of goes with the pointillism lesson that we talked about. So we covered pointillism and how we do dot, 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 repeated dot, dot, dot. When we do our dot, dot, dots closer together, it creates a darker outcome. When we spread them apart, it creates a lighter outcome. Now, Shel Silverstein was all about stippling. If you look on the back of the cover, when we get up close, that's how we're seeing shading right in here. You're seeing shading through stippling. We do dot, dot, dots. You can see some hatching coming right along here. So that was a big technique that Shel Silverstein used. The final one, it's been called random scribbling, different ways to say scribbling to keep it. Random lines, just kind of mixing it up, swirling them together. You could go in a circular motion, crisscross. You could make those lines interact in funny ways. But scribbling, when you scribble closer together, it creates darker, and you work your way out to lighter. So hatching, cross-hatching, stippling, and scribbling. These are the 4 techniques that we can play around with. And like I said, Shel Silverstein used these in his books all the time. A couple of good examples here. Let's take a look. So doing a basic line drawing. Basic line drawings, this is what you're going to get here, where you can see he used lines and shapes to create these different items. If you get closer, you can see hatching on the boy's head because the lines all go in the same direction. Let's take a look at a few more. All right, I love this example right here. This example with this fun little kooky mansion, haunted house. This one here shows so many different techniques. If you get up close, you can see random lines and scribbling in the roof. You can see cross hatching up in the shingles and down in there. You can see cross hatching above the door. You can see hatching in the door. So you can see how when you combine all of these techniques, it creates really fun ways to shade using pen and ink. Now, when I talk pen and ink, there are many approaches we can take. Traditionally, I start drawing in pencil just so I can get my basic shape. So pencil's where we start. If you have what's available to you, we have basic pens. So pens are easily available. Hello, gentlemen. The boys just walked in. And then from there, if you want to add markers, you could use regular washable markers like Crayolas. You could also use Sharpies or thin Sharpies. So Sharpies or thin Sharpies are an excellent resource. The other one, if you want to get super fancy, my favorite go-to would be the Micron pens. So the Micron pens are a little bit more expensive. They're a little bit nicer quality, finer tips. But regardless of what you choose to use, you can mix and match and create pen and ink drawings. So again, I'll just show you this example one more time. This example, we did line drawings with basic shapes, and then I played around with hatching and stippling. You can see I used hatching right in here to create some shading on this building. I used stippling down here to create the gradient of the ground underneath. So all different ways to approach. So that's really where we're going with today. Line drawings, the different drawing techniques. Let's jump back into the poetry aspect. So again, Shel Silverstein was also not only the cartoonist and illustrator, but he was also the poet. And I did say that this month was National Poetry Month. So it starts on April 1st. And what I want to send with you guys today in your resources, I'm going to send you to Shel Silverstein's website. I'm also going to send you, he has lessons and activities available online. So how cool is it that this awesome poet has resources available to us? Now, one of the ones I'm going to link you to is called Celebrate Poetry Month. And it takes you to resources and worksheets to try different kinds of poetry at home. Rhyming poetry, visual poetry, list poetry, acrostic poems. Some of these might sound familiar to you and your young learners. Some of these might be brand new. But the link I take you to literally takes you right to the worksheets that he would use. And these are all meant to be free to the public, all meant to be reproduced so that you can create your own celebration of Poetry Month with your kiddos. So spend the day trying these different worksheets, learning different ways to create poems. And then once you create the poems, try creating the illustrations and cartoons to go along with it. I think it would be a really neat way to. Hello, Ginger. Best part about working at home, your extra coworkers readily available. Hello there. So again, jumping back into it, these worksheets give you all different resources to try different kinds of poetry. So try out a few different techniques. Try working on rhyming poetry. Try working on list poetry. Try non-rhyming or acrostic poems. See what you get. Explore the poetry aspect, and then from there explore creating illustrations for your work. If you're not necessarily interested in the writing aspect, maybe you just take a poem and create an illustration on something that's already been out there. I know in my district, literacy across the curriculum is essential. So what that means is we try to incorporate reading and writing into all different aspects. It's not just about learning it in English class. It's not learning about just in language arts. It's about taking reading and writing and putting it into every content area. And art's a great content area to tie in reading and writing. So like I said, try the drawing techniques. Try playing around with these resources here, seeing what you can create illustration-wise. And then try the Poetry Month worksheets. Try reading aloud. Try reading aloud as a family, reading some poems. Try writing poems as a family. This is a really fun resource that you can use to get some really cool outcomes. And let me know how they go. If there's a poem that you write that you're excited about, or if there's an illustration that you create that you're excited about, send it my way. I would love to see. And as always, don't forget, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be putting all of these resources in the comments section. There will be another live feed later today. I'm going to do one for our older learners, so middle school, high school, adults. Not that this couldn't be for middle school or high school. I definitely think this could work for them as well. But we are going to do one that's more geared towards our older learners as well. And per usual, if you have requests, things you want to learn, this was a request from another teacher out there, which was a great request. But if you have other requests, let me know. And as always, stay safe. I know this quarantine is going to go even longer, so continue to find fun ways to pass the time, fun ways to continue your learning. Stay safe, make good choices, and happy creating. Good luck, guys.